And this morning, millions of Americans are scrambling after their student loan forgiveness plan has been paused.
Your reporter Roger Susanen is live in studio explaining what this means for those who use it. Roger, this impacts a lot of people.
That is exactly right. Good morning, Tracy. Good morning, Caitlin. The Department of Education just made this bombshell announcement, and we know it will impact millions of people, including, of course, borrowers right here in Connecticut. Now, so let me break it down for you because it is pretty darn complicated. Right now, about 2 million people are enrolled in the Department of Education's Income-Based Repayment Plan, or IBR. And as its name suggests, people would make payments directly tied to their income level, and maybe most importantly, the plan would forgive student debt after 20 years. But now, Department of Education leaders are pausing that program, they say, to comply with the recent court decision that halted 3 similar programs. As a result, right now, despite former President Joe Biden's efforts, there aren't any legal student loan forgiveness programs in the U.S., which is something that President Trump supports, although a 30-year forgiveness plan, which is a big difference, is slated to go into effect next year. Now, in the next hour, we're going to take a look at how many people here in Connecticut could be impacted by this big decision. Live in the studio, I'm Roger Susanen. Caitlin, I'll send it back to you.
All right, Roger, thank you.